right, so the bye week is upon us. Well earned for some. Not going to name names here in Cardinals Underground. Paulie Podcast, Darren Urban, Dani, Sureck.
You literally just named names.
You looked at Darren.
You looked at Darren.
No, you looked at Darren when we said
I looked at you looking at Darren.
Intimated someone had earned their bye week. You can't lose a game, but you can lose your edge. And with that in mind, we would like to provide some fodder, some inspiration, some motivation for the Arizona Cardinals on their bye week.
First of all, Paul, you're assuming that we're not all dullards and we have an edge to lose.
I see. Well, no, Darren, look, you may be part of the team's content team, but you're not part of the team. We're talking about the locker room here, Darren, okay?
I got you.
Don't be so presumptuous over there and
I would
pretentious.
never do that.
Now I am looking at Darren. Here's the deal. NFL.com posted their next-gen stats playoff probability model. There's a lot of things
Playoffs?
There's a lot of things we don't need in life, and another probability model is foremost among them, but they are providing detailed estimates of each contending team's postseason chances, blah, blah, more blah, blah, incorporating the latest win probabilities. All you need to know is that, I'm literally quoting NFL.com in the little summary of each team who's in contention. Quote, in case the underdog Cardinals needed some extra motivation during their bye week, here's a fun nugget, says NFL.com. They currently sport a lower probability of finishing atop the NFC than the 8-seeded 49ers, whom they rank ahead of in the standings and have already beaten once.
Okay, I get that to a certain extent, but the 49ers are only a half a game behind the Cardinals. It's not like they're 3 games back right now.
Have you seen the rest of the Niners' schedule, Darren Urban? At Green Bay, at Buffalo, at Miami, at the Cardinals, home against the Lions, and then home against the Rams, the Seahawks, and Chicago.
They did just get Christian McCaffrey back.
They did. But I might give you my opinion on the 49ers a little bit later.
You know, that game with the Lions is the week before they play the Cardinals.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
hello.
Bringing it back to Paul.
Well, I want to make sure Paul gets his credit here.
By the way, teams are not winless, though, the week after playing the Lions. Somebody did defy the odds and that probability model we threw out there.
It was, but still, I mean,
Still,
1 in 7 or whatever.
I mean, the Lions just won a game after throwing 5 interceptions, and they still won a game against C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans.
This is where I once again repeat, as long as we're talking about the 49ers, in the great Dwight Clark catch game when they beat the Cowboys in the in the NFC Championship.
1981.
The 49ers had 6 turnovers that day.
Did they really?
Yes.
Wow. I was standing on my coffee table as a little punk, and I don't remember that. That's good.
Do you guys not remember when that was a question on Wise Guy
I do.
a month ago?
But I'm bringing it up again.
I dismiss all my losses, Dani, okay?
You mentioned on that question that you were on the coffee table watching that game, Paul.
Short memory.
A quick question. Are you guys celebrating the anniversary today?
Oh, boy. What's the anniversary on this fine Tuesday?
It's November 12th.
Okay.
In November 12th, 1970.
Okay, I can tell you I'm not celebrating.
I was
merger?
a mere, 2 months old?
Okay.
It's national, well, not national, because they only celebrate in Oregon and parts of the Northwest. Exploding Whale Day.
Just stop it.
What
You've heard
does
this
that
story,
even
right?
mean?
I thought you said it was National Don't Pump Your Own Gas Day in honor
seriously.
of Oregon.
There was a whale that washed up on a beach in Oregon.
Okay.
And it was so big, it was 8 tons.
I've been to Gold Beach quite a bit.
They didn't know how to get rid of it.
Okay.
Oregon's
Get rid of it.
The highway division in Oregon decided the best way to remove it was to blow it up with dynamite.
We're going to create a lot of sushi for wildlife.
At one point, this one guy's recalling about it and talking to his dad and said they're going to use 20 cases of dynamite. And then his dad was like, you mean like 20 sticks of dynamite? He goes, no, 20 cases. It was 20 cases.
Are we blowing through Mount Hood for a tunnel?
It was... All these families showed up to the beach to see this happen.
Oh, no.
It's on film. Like, you can find it online. I saw it on Twitter. They blew it up.
I'm definitely not celebrating this holiday. Not even a holiday.
And it rained whale goo all over these families and their kids, and they were disgusted. And at one point, a large enough piece of blubber went high into the air and landed on this dude's brand new car and bent it in half.
Oh, no. Yeah, do the math on that.
How
What's
is that the
velocity?
best way to get rid of a whale? Why would you not help it back into the ocean?
They have since said if they have another beached whale like that, that would not be how they would remove it. However, it is considered a holiday up there now. And so I just wanted to make sure you can Google it. Oregon, blown up whale, November 12th, 1970.
So it's one thing to go to San Diego and SeaWorld and get splashed by Shamu when you're in the front row of the Shamu tank. It's another thing when Shamu is blown to bits all over you.
I keep thinking to myself, you drive there thinking, okay, we're going to see this thing with my family. Not only is it disgusting and you get rained on by, pieces of whale insides, but your car gets destroyed.
That's karma. That's what you deserve.
Let me tell you, I'm triggered by all the
whale
dings
was
I've been
dead
getting
already,
recently.
Dani. I'm just telling you.
Oh, I didn't know that. That was important information you omitted.
What, you think they blew up a live whale?
That's what I was under the impression of.
No.
Oh my God.
It was a whale carcass.
Okay, well, that was important information you left out.
You need to be asking the questions, Dani. You need to be inquisitive.
Are you going to turn this on me?
Be curious.
Now, so that was November 12th, 1970. November 13th, 1970 is when they created PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. That's when PETA was created the very next day. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, we're not even talking about the monkeys that got loose in North Carolina.
Okay, which reminds
South Carolina.
Speaking of explosions and instantaneously and bad ideas in San Diego.
King of a segue right
It was New Year's Eve 3 years ago. You can Google it up. Like Edger and James used to say, Google me. And Google it up, and it was 3 years ago on New Year's Eve that an entire 45-minute fireworks, actually, I'm sorry, it was July 4th fireworks was supposed to be like 40 minutes worth, and the guy's software got messed up on the trigger man who had his laptop, and it all went off instantaneously and lasted about 11 seconds of ridiculous pyro times 100 million. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I really don't like the image of having a whale blown up in my head right now.
I'll send you the video after this.
No need.
It's excellent.
Okay, so it's most definitely bye week. Let's put it that way.
Alex, we'll go ahead and flip that into the video.
Actually, I think that's a pretty apt description of where the New York Jets are headed. Somebody might want to suggest that to the New York Post. That might be their next headline. I'm quoting Garrett Wilson now. This is after the game.
This is Garrett Wilson and not Garrett Williams.
Garrett Wilson, after apparently, Aaron Rodgers went to the podium and said the energy was poor on both sides of the ball.
Yes.
Garrett Wilson then responded to New York beat writers by saying, yeah, the energy is not there because we're playing like trash. Quote, end quote.
That's fair.
So that pretty much described what the Jets put out on that field. How much that had to do with the Arizona Cardinals, though, that is my question, because I want to believe that the 4-game win streak and the brand of ball the Cardinals are playing right now is responsible for how deplorable and despicable the brand of ball that the Bears and the Jets put out there the last couple of weeks.
Cardinals looked good in all three fronts. The fact that they're on a 4-game win streak is impressive. Those are wins they are earning. The offense against the Jets defense was spectacular. Quarterback Kyler Murray had a fantastic game. He went 22 of 24, 2 rushing, 1 passing touchdowns. Murray was decisive. He was accurate inside and outside the pocket. He was locked in. The fact that he got slammed by a defensive lineman to the point where that sack, his helmet went flying 10 or 15 yards off, completely unseen by Murray. And then a few plays later, he finds Marvin Harrison Jr. in the end zone. Spectacular performance by Murray and the rest of that offense.
I loved, by the way, Jonathan Gannon. I can't remember if it was in his press conference or on the radio when he did his thing, but he was like openly wondering, like, how did the helmet even come off when it's like attached 4 different places?
He should know. He played college football. You get hit hard enough, the lid is coming off. And it was that hard.
Oh, trust me.
On the sideline, I'm like, oh, my goodness. You know what that resembled? It resembled, I hate to say it, a pedestrian in a walkway getting mowed down.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Well, it was interesting post-game when Murray was talking about that hit. He was saying he didn't like it, although it gave him an adrenaline rush. He made it very clear he doesn't get hit often. He doesn't want to get hit often, especially with that kind of force. But he had a little smirk which was noticed by the TV cameras when he got up. And when I asked him about it, he said, yeah, gave him a little extra juice. And turns out if you're going to hit Murray that hard, he's going to be upset about it. He's going to turn around and score on you immediately after.
The best part of that whole sequence. So he gets up, he says he's fine, and we see it on the mic'd up video already that he tells the ref he's fine.
Yeah, go to the Cardinals Twitter account if you want a quick view of what it looks like field level.
That whole mic'd up episode is coming out soon.
By the way, that was the second fastest sack in the NFL this year, according to Next Gen Stats, 2.24 seconds.
It was brutal. But he gets up, he's okay. They let him. They do a handoff to Connor to probably to let him get his bearings, I would hope. But to me, and then 2 plays later, he hits Marvin Harrison for the touchdown. But to me, the whole play of the day, and when it comes to that post hit, was the play after the Connor handoff. He goes back in the pocket. He stands there a long time. Now, he got good protection. He was protected. But for him to have just gotten leveled like that, and for him to stand in the pocket and patiently wait for Trey McBride to come open and then hit him for a 13-yard gain, I thought that was fantastic.
It reminded me of the Carson Palmer. There's an epic mic'd up Carson Palmer. He gets high load in the pocket, gets the ball out, completes the pass. They get down into the red zone, and he's in a lot of pain. And you can just hear him seething and the angst and anguish. And guys are, you all right? You all right? And he's getting up, and he's walking slowly with a limp back to the huddle, and he calls out the play, and he's still – and then he hands the ball off, and the whole time he's just in absolute pain. And you just realize, okay, everyone says they want to be an NFL quarterback at $50 million per year, but do you really? When you can literally almost have your head taken off in the pocket.
This performance was not a one-off by Murray. This is how locked in he has looked the last 4 games, which have all resulted in a win. Some cases, like in Miami, he had to use his legs quite a bit to escape some sacks and find ways to win with his legs. Although he had 2 rushing touchdowns against the Jets, he wasn't having to run as much. That's something that this Cardinals offense has done a nice job, is adjusting to what has been needed to beat the defense they're playing. Sometimes that's passing, sometimes that's running. They're doing whatever it takes. The pass and run game, though, were clicking. And it has been a few weeks since, for the Cardinals, both pieces have been working as well as they did. James Conner had another fantastic game, which he seems to always do at this point, finding those dirty yards. I don't know if it was for you guys, at least for me, though, it was the first time I've ever heard an official use the term butt cheek when talking about a body part of a player being down. An official, yes. Which Connor was down, his butt cheek was apparently down at the 1 yard line, and then he made up for it a few plays later and found the end zone.
So did his butt cheeks.
Yes. So
I mean, why not, rear end or backside, posterior,
I said, why not use
something.
tuchus or tush, something.
Okay. All right.
But the run game was
Paul's struggling with this.
I love when I
he
can
wants to go back
Paul.
to the exploding whale.
I'm envisioning the official John Hussey actually saying that over the open mic. I'm envisioning that would be good.
That was interesting.
That would
be good.
What was great about the run game Sunday was it wasn't just Connor. Trey Benson, the rookie, had a lot of snaps, and he ended up with 62 yards on 10 carries. It was the most confident, most comfortable Benson has looked. That's going to happen as he continues to get more snaps. He was fast. He was agile. He was tough to tackle. Now Benson has been getting some more snaps, and that's not because Connor's doing something wrong. It's because now they've realized they can give Connor a break without having any sort of drop off in the run game. That's incredibly important for a Cardinals offense that relies heavily on running the ball and using that to set up the rest of their pace.
So Jeff Ulbrich told the media, this is the interim head coach, defensive coordinator of the Jets, told the media after the game that the Jets did a, quote, whole tackling presentation on James Conner on Friday before the game. So on the zone read Kyler touchdown run, they mentioned after the game how, okay, he's riding Conner. He can see the entirety of the Jets defense crashing on number 6. So he pulls it and scores it. And to me, it's twofold. One, just what the weapon that James Conner is. So when he only has 12 carries for 33 yards, even though he had that big 7-yard carry the moment after Kyler got jack stomped, right? Yep. He still is a key to victory because you're playing off the fact that they're devoting so much attention to James Conner. And that to me, and we can debate this, and there's a lot of things to like about the Cardinals offense right now. And I mean, in that game, are you kidding me? Over 400 total yards, right? Everything they did well. 17 straight completions, but it's figuring out where you can attack the defense and then having the ability to attack the defense in multiple ways.
I agree. Well, I mean, it's nice that they had a tackling presentation on James Conner. They probably should have had one on Trey McBride.
I mean,
at least Sauce Gardner.
Don't tackle so low because he's going to jump over you.
But when Conner leads the NFL by a country mile in missed tackles forced or whatever the stat is, right? Makes sense.
No, look, I get it. But again, there is a kind of pick your poison. I mean, I feel like last year, if you shut down Conner, you were going to be in a pretty good place if you were defense.
Yep.
You can't necessarily do that. I mean, again, when you look at what Benson was doing, like Dani was talking about, I mean, if Trey Benson can come in and play like that and play rough and tumble like James Conner does, which he was not doing earlier in the year, that's a huge thing. The McBride thing, like, to me, that game, the Cardinals were already ahead, I think, 14-6. But what should have happened is Trey McBride caught a little 3-yard pass and gone nowhere on 3rd and 7, and the Cardinals were going to be punting only up 8, and Aaron Rodgers was going to get the ball back. And instead, he got that ball. He somehow spun out of the tackle, got the first down, and then got the hurdle. Like, everybody talks about the hurdle, but he had already gotten the first down because of the way he was able to shed that tackle. And it just, between Benson doing it and Conner doing it and McBride doing it, there is this, I mean, you do not feel, and again, we're probably going to talk about the defense later. It's the same thing on the other side of the ball in a different way, which is, okay, Cardinals don't have a bunch of superstars on defense, but if you literally have got these guys all convinced to run, I don't want to say something bad, but run full speed to the ball carrier every time, and there's 3 guys to take you down, I mean, you're going to do a lot of good things defensively, and that's what the Cardinals are doing right now.
I mean, we all saw Trey Benson in August. He doesn't look like the Trey Benson in November.
Now he's getting the reps.
But
he's earned the reps, though.
Yes.
He's earned the reps, but in between, the style of running that is James Conner has rubbed off on the rookie.
100%. Those tough runs, running through tackles, not just looking to run around players, running through the gut of the defense.
Not going down, not going out of bounds, or several times he easily could have just stepped out of bounds. Nope. Stoking it straight ahead.
And in Benson's case, I do think there was a couple times, again, and we've talked about this with Marvin Harrison and learning the pro game. Trey Benson has had the speed where you start taking it inside on an inside run, and in college, it's not there, I'm going to bounce it outside and catch the corner. You cannot do that, and he did that a bunch of times earlier this year. He ended up losing yards or not getting the 3 or 4 he could have gotten just by jamming it up in there because he thought he could bounce it outside. And I'm not saying he can never bounce it outside. James Conner does that sometimes too, but I think one of the things I like about Benson of late is he's sticking to the original design of the play inside and getting the yards there.
You have to give major props to this offensive line. The Conner run where his butt cheek was down at the 1 yard line. Center Yelda Froholt came out and made a crucial block that left Conner with nothing but free space to roam. On the Conner 1 yard touchdown shortly after that, it was phenomenal blocking by the entire offensive line, specifically left tackle Paris Johnson Jr., who blocked his man across the entire line of scrimmage and pancaked his defender outside the right tackle, completely through the entire whistle, the entire play. Just a dominating performance by this offensive line that has done a nice job keeping their quarterback clean and upright, has done a nice job creating gaps for these running backs, for Trey McBride, for these players, and the offensive line absolutely deserves credit, especially when you've got backups playing as your right guard and your right tackle, and Tristan Colon and Kelvin Beachum in those respective roles have done a nice job stepping up.
Is it fair to say Paris Johnson Jr. blew up his opponent?
I don't like that we keep going back to this whale.
By the way,
I'll be honest.
Kelvin Beachum, how many times did he just lock up Hassan Reddick one-on-one? I mean, Beach.
I'll be honest, I remember pregame Hassan Reddick, and then I forgot about Hassan Reddick was in the game until after.
Yeah.
And I saw it. Yeah. Oh, he's on the quote sheet. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, so I said this after the game. You guys can disagree or agree. I always start with disagree because that's the probability, according to the NFL.com probability model. But anyway, the Buda Bakers of the world, James Conner, Kyler Murray, Kaiser White, the team captains, the best players on the team. They're the standard. And guess what? They're all having Pro Bowl caliber seasons, are they not? Okay. It's the rest of the roster that has elevated its game. especially during this 4-game win streak. It's the first and second-year players in particular who are much better than a year ago, much better than a month ago. We've already named some of the names, but when a Dante Stills and a Rabbit can fill in for JT, talk about emulating the leader at your position. I mean, Rabbit flies around, seek and destroy, much like a Buda Baker. To me, that's where this team has established itself in first place with a winning record, 6-4 going into the bye. It's all those guys not named Buda Baker and Kyler Murray who have improved and evolved. And to listen to Jonathan Gannon and read between the lines, a lot of it he credits to practice, right? He's not just talking about practice going through the motions, which a lot of NFL head coaches kind of preach practice, but what are they really doing in practice? And the Cardinals will, once or twice a week, really get after it.
It's funny bringing that up. I saw a tweet from Kurt Warner. Now, he was getting into a debate, and props to Kurt. Like, he will engage. If somebody does it, and isn't an idiot about it, he will engage fans out there about why he's making his points. The subject was Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
And you have these Colts fans that are mad that Anthony Richardson isn't playing. He needs to play to get better. And Kurt Warner's point is they're a better team with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's not great, he said.
Yeah. 6 turnovers in the last 2 games.
But he said the Colts are better off with Flacco because Anthony Richardson is so far behind. It does him no good to play. He's not going to get any better that way. And one of the fans was like, well, then how is he supposed to get better? And Kurt made the point, like, in 1998, which is the year before he broke out, he was still the backup quarterback with St. Louis. And he said, I got better because of practice. I went in, and even though I'm not running my team's exact plays, I try to take the plays of the opposition that I had to run and mesh them in my head a little bit with plays that we had on playbook and try to see the thing. And he goes, it's about practice and getting better at practice. He needs to get better at practice. It's how can you go out and produce at a decent level if you don't ever practice it? So he's kind of on the opposite side, but it goes to what Gannon was talking about, which I thought was a really interesting point that you were talking about, where he was like, this time of year, you're walking a fine line between keeping guys healthy and keeping the practices intense so you can continue to develop players, and they lean more towards development, and it's shown on the field.
I also, and I'll come back to this, I also think it's just the profound accountability that Gannon has established. After wins, those team meetings on Monday where he's calling guys out, calling out team leaders. Look, you mess this up. You might get a lot of votes for the Pro Bowl this year, but it can be better. Here's how, here's why. And doesn't matter who you are, team captains included, you're getting called out in front of the whole team.
The practices are intense. They're competitive. Gannon talked about cornerback Garrett Williams specifically after this Jets win, that in a competitive part of practice, last week before the game against New York, Williams got smoked. Gannon said he got smoked bad. And he learned from it, and he was in the exact same situation on the game, and he made the play. And that's the point of practice, is that's why you want to have these competitive practices. It's not just the big name players on the Cardinals who are making an impact, the Kyler Murrays, Trey McBride, James Conner, Buda Bakers. The reason the Cardinals are winning these games is because they're getting the most out of their depth players. That's the ability of the players. That's the coaching staff getting the best of what they can and really working on the skill sets of all their players. We've talked about it on offense with Trey Benson. Tight end Elijah Higgins playing behind McBride has looked nice and has found the end zone a couple of times. On defense, it's really the trio in the secondary. Garrett Williams in his second year, Starling Thomas as your cornerback, second year, and the rookie Max Melton. The three of them have looked really good. Every week, Thomas and Melton and Williams are having multiple PBUs. They're playing smart. They're playing safe, clean football. They're not drawing penalties. They are doing a very nice job eliminating the biggest receivers of their opponents every week. And then you throw in Rabbit this week with Jalen Thompson, who was out with the ankle, and his first start of his career, he was flying around. His closing speed is really impressive. It's the depth, specifically on this Cardinals defense, that is a large reason why they've gone 3 of their last 4 games without giving up a touchdown.
16 different players had a pressure against Caleb Williams. 12 different players had a pressure against Aaron Rodgers. So you're right. I mean, they're using everyone who's in a game day uniform. After the game on the radio side, I asked Jonathan Gannon what he could tell us about the game plan because he's very familiar with Aaron Rodgers. And he said, we threw the bucket at him, quote, unquote. You can't do that if you don't trust your corners. You can't do that unless, you know for at least 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 seconds, your guys are going to be able to compete with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, who, by the way, neither one of them wrecked the game. Neither one of them was a huge factor. And that's 3 games in a row against 3 of the best receiving rooms in the league, Miami, Chicago, and now the Jets. And when I brought that up with Jonathan Gannon, he said, yeah, and we get Seattle next with their big 3 because Jackson Smith and Jigma has had a breakout season.
Aaron Rodgers didn't even pass 100 yards, didn't get over 100 yards passing until less than 10 minutes remained in the game.
And what did Gannon say before the game? He said, I always watch a quarterback when they hit their back foot, is the ball coming out? Is it coming out? Especially like Tua, a lot like Miami's passing game, in rhythm, precision pass, timing. So, look, that's the 4th time this year they've pitched a shutout in the second half, the Cardinals defense, and 3 straight home games without any touchdowns allowed.
Are you talking about halftime adjustments, Paul? Is that what
okay, so I asked Coach about that in the last TV show. I said a media guy like me would say, halftime adjustments, Coach. I go, true or false? And he said false.
Yeah.
So we adjust over the course of the entire game. He said, although, and then he said, although there are a few games where we'll make a more profound, significant change at halftime, but for the most part, it's in real time.
They don't have time to do much. Somebody said, I saw somebody wrote a story about it the other day. Sam Farmer, maybe, LA Times, wrote about it at one point, and it's like, there's only 12 minutes, or 13 minutes. Basically, by the time everybody gets in the locker room, goes to the restroom, maybe gets a snack, it's time to walk back out there and warm up. Yeah,
a lot of times I usually watch because we're doing the halftime show. They're walking out between 4.5 minutes still to go. So from the time they're in there 6 to 8 minutes tops.
Bathroom break.
Yeah. So
we also had to shout out real quick if we're talking about defense, Baron Browning, the outside linebacker whom the Cardinals traded for last week.
I'm glad you said defense because I thought you were going to shout out somebody for a bathroom break. So that's good.
No.
We'll edit that out later.
Browning had not even did he have a full week of practice?
Yeah, well,
he
did. He got traded on Tuesday. Monday. He got traded on Monday, so he was there.
So he was a full
technically
week,
had a full week of practice.
The fact we had to think about it probably is.
He played 18 snaps.
Yeah.
He made an impact.
Yeah.
He was the first to get to Aaron Rodgers to flush him out of the pocket when it was 4th and 3 on the Cardinals' 3-yard line, and Rodgers turned the ball over, and that was Browning who got the pressure there. And that might not be something that is noticeable very quickly, or you think, oh, a new player, he can't do much, but he did a lot in those 18 snaps, and that's impressive.
So I got this triple confirmed here within the last 24 hours that there is definitely a school of thought that he was being misused in Denver, that his skill set was not being maximized, was not being utilized to its best in that scheme, especially early in his career in Denver.
Sounds like a Mac Wilson Sr., with New England.
Early in his career, he was playing inside linebacker.
Yeah, they had him off the ball early.
So,
and then maybe even the scheme
Hassan
itself.
Reddick-esque.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but you see why they gave up a 6-rounder for him, because he does have things you can't teach in terms of the bend and the explosion, and if he wasn't being used in the right way, you're like, okay, maybe you haven't seen his NFL potential yet, and there's upside. So, okay, if, and I do say this with some trepidation, but anticipation in the same way, if you can add Darius Robinson, ... to this front 7 at some point, and if Jonah Williams returns, and he is still your best right tackle, what does that mean? It's the bye week. Can we daydream a little bit here? What are we thinking? And how much of an impact do you think that makes?
Well, I'm going to state for the record, I just because it's the bye week, Darius Robinson isn't getting on the field this week because there is nothing on the field this week. So the earliest he can be back on the field in terms of practicing would be next week. So I don't think there's any way he plays. I think Jonah Williams is probably pretty close. And again, the ability to I'm assuming Jonah Williams goes back in the lineup, with all due respect to Kelvin Beachum.
I'd say so, yes.
That makes sense to me. I think that can only help. He was playing really well. I mean, as I mentioned before, Kyler said, Jonah, you felt super safe that first quarter when Jonah was in there. So that'll be big. The Robinson thing has a chance to make an impact, but just like we've continued to talk about Marvin Harrison's learning curve, or we just talked about all these other young players about how they're Trey Benson, how they're better now than they were 6 games ago. Well, Darius Robinson hasn't had any of those games. So
he hasn't played football in months.
So we're going to have to let him have a chance to catch up a little.
By the way, 67, Charlie Heck has gotten a significant, not significant, but definitely has got enough snaps to be noticeable in some 6 offensive lineman sets. I could see Beach being that guy.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. Yeah.
And we know how much they love to run 12 and 13 personnel, and so sometimes you just substitute an extra offensive lineman out there, some of those 3 tight end sets. All right. It's a bye week, so
is it time?
Well, no, it's a bye week, so we don't have wise guy trivia this week.
No,
Paul, you are the reigning champion. Don't you want to stay hot?
Well, it's my team confidence isn't exactly where it should be here at the bye week.
Well, here's the best part of that is you don't get to decide. Can we cue the music?
No, please, no music.
It's time for The Wise Guy, the world's fastest growing Cardinals quiz show. The stakes are low. The winner gets absolutely nothing. Here's your hostess with the mostest, Dani Sureck.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
You know what you realize is this week's subject, because we don't have an opponent, it's all about whales.
Enough with the whales.
We'll edit that out as well. Here we
Paul,
go.
you won last week. You get to decide if you want to receive or defer.
It is a week to wait. Oh, I did win last week? Okay. Yeah, that is meaningful. It's significant.
Wow, did that change or what?
Momentum definitely carries over. I don't care what the studies say the Cardinals conducted
what about
internally.
Jonathan Ganning?
No, I'm sorry. There is momentum, okay? And with that in mind, 3 is talking to me. 3.
Okay.
Here we go. In honor of Buddha, let's go 3.
Oh, my gosh.
It's the year of the 3.
Okay, here we go. We previously established that former Cardinal safety Kerry Rhodes appeared in Lady Gaga's video for the hit song Paparazzi.
Yeah, nailed that one.
He's not the only former Cardinals player to appear in a high-level production.
Ooh.
This former first-round pick and 3-time Pro Bowl offensive lineman was cast in the 1995 movie Waiting to Exhale, starring Whitney Houston and Angela Bassett.
1995?
Waiting to Exhale.
A 3-time Pro Bowl offensive lineman.
Former first-round pick.
1995. The former left tackle who played with Wolf, used to block Lawrence Taylor. Oh, my goodness. What was his name? Once again, I can picture him. I can't remember the name. And why am I giving Darren hints? I have no idea because he's going to come in and steal.
You've been given the buzzer. Darren?
Louis Sharp.
Correct. That's steal.
I knew it. I just... Okay. Here
Paul
we go.
is hitting himself in the head with his microphone.
Disappointed the question, if we're talking about high-level production, wasn't about Adrian Wilson on Hawaii 5-0.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad on that one. Okay.
Anyways.
Darren.
Yes.
Pick a question.
Number 1, please.
Tight end Trey McBride has hurdled an opponent in 3 consecutive games, prompting radio analyst Ron Wolfley and PA announcer Jim Barnett to call him Trey McFly. Of course, McFly is a reference to several characters in the 1985 classic film Back to the Future. And yes, I have seen that. In the film, what year did Marty McFly accidentally get sent to in Dr. Brown's time machine?
1955.
Correct.
Oh, wait.
That was during COVID when I hadn't seen a lot of classics. I went through this whole list of watching movies and Back to the Future was one of them. The first one was good. The others, you have a drop off.
How do you feel about gigawatts there, Paul?
Well, what I'm doing now is I'm hiding my phone in the internet
gigawatts.
behind my screen. So there may or may not be some New England Patriots style cheating here about to happen. Here we go. All right, I'm down.
What?
Let's go.
Okay, question 2 or 4?
2 or 4? Let's see here. Let's go 4.
Okay.
Because I think they ran out of juice in formulating the question, so 4 is going to be easy.
You're underestimating Omo.
Here we go.
After a 22-year absence, the NFL reintroduced the bye week in 1990. That season, 2 Cardinals starters were named to the Pro Bowl. Safety Tim McDonald and this 5-time Pro Bowl punter out of the University of Washington.
Okay.
If you look, this is going to be the only other question made for you if we're talking about punters. You already missed Andy Isabella earlier in the season. Do not miss this, Paul.
Okay. All right. Okay, there's 2 choices here.
5-time Pro Bowl punter.
5-time Pro Bowl punter. Tom Tupa.
Incorrect.
Jeff Fiegels.
Incorrect. You can't even steal your own question.
Rich Camarillo?
That's a steal.
There's no way. That's it. Just beyond demoralizing.
That's what you get for thinking that Omo wasn't going to have juice in the final question.
That's has the Jets team playing left yet? Because I feel like I'm a member of the Jets right now.
The Jets were grounded.
Here we
Paul.
go, Darren. Let's give you your last question anyway.
Okay.
Former Cardinals coach Bruce Arians once had a memorable quote when heading into a bye week.
There's no way Rich Camarillo was a 5-time Pro Bowler. There's no way.
Arians said, quote, "Don't be the guy. Too many times when a guy gets a day off, he gets tased in blank."
Miami Beach, baby.
Nope.
We'll get
South Beach.
fine. Out of pity, we will give the steal to Paul because he's still going to lose.
And
it was South Beach.
Well, it's winner take all at the very end, isn't it? Winner.
You always ask that. It's up to Darren for the tiebreaker.
Oh, we can go right ahead and not have winner take all.
Do you want to do the tiebreaker just
I'm
for
competitive.
funsies?
Let's go. I'm competitive.
It's not winner take all.
No,
but
there's
we can
nothing
do
fun
this.
about this right now. It's
you
personal.
You are good at the tiebreakers.
very
Closest
personal.
to the number wins. Here we go. Jinx. Against the Jets, quarterback Kyler Murray set the Cardinals franchise record for most consecutive pass completions with 17. What is the NFL record for most consecutive pass completions?
You want a number?
I want a number, please, and thank you. What is the NFL record for most consecutive pass completions?
Okay. All right.
I love this music. Darren has shown me his answer, so Paul, you can say yours out loud.
28.
Darren went with
24.
24. The correct answer is 25, so Darren still would have won. It's actually that record is shared by 4 different quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill, Marcus Mariota, Phillip Rivers, and Nick Foles.
Oh, Murderer's Row there.
Wow. Okay.
Murderer's Row, which, by the
Okay.
way, Dani had never heard that term before.
Murderer's Row?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said it recently, and she did not understand it.
That sounds about right.
I think she was fearing that I was talking about a bunch of serial killers.
That also sounds about right.
Dani, not following your line of thinking or your vernacular is a daily occurrence, though. So
This is
it's
also
really not
true.
all that notable. All right. Well, you know what? Because there's a certain amount of angst, I think this is a good time in the program
For you, though?
to take it out on the Seahawks. So we'll just
The
point
who?
out the last place Seahawks, more aptly said, coming off their Week 9 loss to the Rams, 26-20. And they started 3-0, by the way, if you're wondering about the Seahawks, the next opponent. And they've gone 1-5 since, and they've lost 4 in a row at home. And that's where the Cardinals are headed next. Just thought I'd throw that
The
out
Cardinals
there.
play the Seahawks in 2 of their next 3 games.
Yeah.
It's at Seattle, at Minnesota,
So
home
much
against Seattle.
Seahawks.
Yeah. So,
That's right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Omo just texted me and he said, I need to know about the picks. So I need to update the picks standings.
I see.
Oh,
Okay.
do you really? I don't think you need to.
You and I both went 9-4, Paul.
Okay.
So we
All right.
remain tied at 94 and 48.
Wow. Neck and neck. Okay.
Dani did not go 9-4.
I see. All
Dani
right.
lost another game in the standings, and
Yeah.
she now stands 11 games behind us.
Okay.
That's like a full week slate of games.
You know what? Because you're never able to win or lose during Wise Guy Trivia, I think it's only fitting that you are losing in the underground
Why are you
picks.
taking it out
I just
on me,
think, you
Paul?
know, well, because
I
I
tell you that
realized
I'm rooting for you and Wise Guys, the underdog.
I realize it might be a little early to take it out on the Seahawks, just because I'd be jumping the bye.
Yeah, we got a whole nother podcast for the
right,
Seahawks.
To bag on the Seahawks. So, although I did enjoy the headline, Geno Smith and Seahawks ride their pass-happy offense to the NFC West cellar. That's one of the better headlines I've seen.
That's a whiplash kind of
Yes.
headline right there.
Yes, that is a good one.
Is DK Metcalf healthy yet?
By the way, you look at the rest of the schedules for the rest of the NFC West, and it's advantage Cardinals.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. You're trying to assess where things are going here. over the last 7 games of the season for the Arizona Cardinals, and advantage AZ when it comes to the strength of schedule.
Not to sound like a jinx, because I know Darren doesn't believe in jinxes.
No.
If you look at the back half of this schedule, Cardinals look like they will have the upper hand in majority of them with how they've been playing.
Well, they still have 4 division games left. So you still need to take care of business within the division. Now, they're in first place, so they've already proven, and they've already beaten the Rams and the 49ers. Yep. But you can slip in those division games and have it get sideways too. As well as the Cardinals are playing, it's funny, you look at even after the Rams lost last week and you look at the standings and you're like, man, the Cardinals are playing so well, and there's not much daylight there between them and the rest of the division right now. There's still a long way to go.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way. The Cardinals are at a point right now. Things are going so well.
How well are they going?
Yeah.
God, that was terrible.
That you have
he didn't really give me a lot to work
that you
with.
have a Bears team that hasn't scored a touchdown in 23 straight possessions. And the Cardinals are trying to figure out why 1 or 2 of their 24 pass attempts didn't connect. I mean, that's
a big difference, Barb.
That's the degree to which the Cardinals are fine-tuning right now. When Jonathan Gannon meets the media and says, yeah, the first incompletion to the game, guess what? That was a miscommunication or some sort of very correctable error. We're trying to figure out why that happened, how we can make sure that never happens again. That's what you call fine-tuning, as opposed to some of these other teams, right, where it's absolute disaster. And you look at this offense, and here's my question over the last, I don't know, whenever the Kurt Warner, speaking of Kurt Warner, the video came out about Kyler needing to slow down.
Yeah.
Does that not look prophetic in a lot of ways?
Yes. I mean, it does to me.
I mean, guys have elevated their game around Kyler. There's no doubt about it. But Kyler just seems to be that much more comfortable in the pocket and just seems to be seeing the field. When you hear him talk about the game and where his eyes are going and the fact he is in sync, and whether it's a combination of keeping the defense on their heels with the play calling and the different formations and personnel groups and the balance of the run and the pass. But it always comes down to the quarterback and the decision maker and the trigger man, and he just seems and appears more comfortable than ever.
The decisions Murray is making are the right ones consistently. He is patient and poised in the pocket. He is leading his receivers more so in these last couple of weeks. He is putting his trust in his offensive line to be patient with the ball and putting trust in his receivers, throwing the ball before breaks are made in the routes, knowing where they're going to be. That touchdown to Marvin Harrison Jr., a beautiful throw over his back shoulder fade and a beautiful catch by Harrison. And that's because of the trust, because there was a defender right on Harrison's back in the end zone. Another play that just, you think to yourself, how on earth is Murray pulling this stuff off? He rolled out of the pocket. He was under pressure. He rolled out to his right, throws across his body on his back leg over his left to where McBride is all by his lonesome. It was a little underthrown. That's only because he had to throw it so far across the field. McBride was able to recognize that, come back a little bit, and make the catch. That's just an example where every game at this point, Murray is making a spectacular play to the point where you're thinking, how on earth did he pull that off? It feels like nobody else can pull off a lot of these plays that Murray is doing.
Where's Trey McBride tracking? He just seems to get better and better. He just seems to put more and more highlight plays out there. By the time we hit the end of the season, I know George Kittle's having a great season.
Yes, he is.
Travis Kelce looks like he's in slow motion a little bit right now towards that point in his career, maybe an off season that was more Hollywood than football. But in terms of Sam Laporta not having a stellar second season.
He's been hurt.
Yeah, been
Hawkinson just came back.
Yep.
Mark Andrews has had an off season for whatever reason.
Which is interesting because we're talking about McBride, who hasn't had a single receiving touchdown this year.
That's
he's
true.
Still having a great season.
Although he's sick, Dani, that he dropped the one in the end
That's
zone.
what he said.
Because he did drop it. I mean,
you think so? I mean, that was, like I said, on the sidelines, some plays are terrible angles, some are really good angles. That was right in my line of sight, and I mean, that was an absolute heater that Kyler threw, and he turned around, and as soon as he turned around, it was on him, and it was he had to really reach for it.
That's fair.
I'd say it was 50-50.
If he's the one saying he dropped it, I can only go by that.
I get it.
But I will say this, when we start naming off, and again, not taking anything away, Kelce is starting to get a little hotter, and quite frankly, if it wasn't for Travis Kelce the last few weeks, the Chiefs wouldn't still be undefeated because with all the injuries that Kansas City has had. But like with all those other factors involved, it doesn't mean Dalton Kincaid. It doesn't mean that the Dallas Goedert's been hurt. It doesn't mean that those guys aren't really good. But when you factor that stuff in, I mean, other than Kittle, now I agree with you. Kittle made a catch on Sunday. Brock Purdy airmailed him. And somehow George Kittle leaped in the air to like almost knock it down for a moment. And then as it dropped, he grabbed it and went and somehow made the catch out of it. But Trey McBride's doing all those same things. I mean, right now, to me, without watching all the other tight ends every play, but seeing kind of from afar, to me, the top two tight ends in the league are Trey McBride and George Kittle. And to Trey's credit, he's like, I'm not here to compare myself to anybody else. And I don't think he's going to turn down people bringing it up, but he's not going to say that stuff. And again, George Kittle is one of those guys who has mentioned Trey before as like, you got to watch this guy. He's on the up and up and he's coming and that kind of stuff.
Something else that isn't in the stat sheet for McBride is his blocking. That was something he talked about all offseason of a part of his game. He was focused on improving. And he was taking it seriously and having pride in being able to be a complete tight end. And that shows the amount of 12 or 13 personnel that this Cardinals team is in. The fact that you can have one of your best pass catchers out there and you still don't know if it's a pass or a run play because McBride has really improved his blocking in that sense makes a difference for this offense. And there's plenty of these top tight ends where if they're out on the field, you know that they're not really going to be an intense blocker. That's not McBride.
He got a lot of attention, did he not? Didn't he, Kyle Brandt, didn't get honorable mention or whatever for Angry Run?
He did. He was part of the Angry Runs finalists for the week.
I saw him a lot of ESPN shows. I was listening to ESPN Radio. This, to me, was a threshold moment this week. ESPN Radio, national NFL talk show, blah, blah, more blah, the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, of course, they're talking about East Coast teams, and they're talking about the Eagles. And the guy yells out, is there a more physical team right now than the Eagles? And the second person yells out Detroit, and the third person yells out Arizona. And I'm like, look at that. Even in the East Coast bias guys, in their New York studio, ESPN, where the Western and Mountain and Western time zones barely exist, the Cardinals are now garnering a reputation for being a physical team. And I thought that was significant.
Philly's physical? More physical than
if you're on the East Coast, isn't Philly always?
How is Detroit not the first team everybody thinks of?
The fans are physical. I don't know about
That's true.
The team. If only the team would embody the fans, hard-nosed style of play. But yes, Detroit, and there's no doubt Detroit came out week 3, 6 offensive linemen and double tight ends. That wasn't a message of sorts from Dan Campbell, because you heard their assistants all week long talking about, this team's trying to, we see a lot of ourselves in this team. And I'm just going to remind you guys of my premonition. I said here on Cardinals Underground, week 4 after that Lions loss, I said there was something a vision of some sort of thought bubble that came to me on the sideline. And that 20-13 loss at the very end, I said I would not be shocked if the Cardinals end up at Detroit for a playoff game this season. And I feel decent about that right now. Unlike my Wise Guy trivia performances week to week, I feel much better about that.
I'm going to take your word for that because I don't have any recollection of that.
Actually, we'll edit that out later as well. That last premonition that I threw out there, we'll edit that out.
Well, speaking of fans, we're going to talk about the Philly fans being physical. I have a couple questions for you both as fans and for the listeners. I'd love to hear people chime in. This is a topic that came up when I was watching practice during the week with Darren, and we want to bring it now to Paul on the podcast. How do you feel about fans going to any sporting event and wearing a jersey of a team not playing?
Not playing. Okay.
You go to a Cardinals Jets game and you're wearing a Vikings jersey.
A Cowboys jersey.
Rando jersey.
Well, you shouldn't be. You should be embarrassed to wear a Cowboys jersey right now, anyway.
Fair.
Well, you're kind of asking the wrong guy. I don't get worked up about uniforms. Like I don't really care.
Get worked up about something, Paul.
So it doesn't really matter to me that much. I guess if it's really meaningful, if you're a grown,
it's okay to say you don't care.
Like I mean, if I walked in, I grew up loving Ronnie Lott, I guess, but would I walk into a Jets Giants game wearing a Ronnie Lott jersey? No.
See, I hate it. I don't. If you're going to a game and you're not a fan of either team, great. No one's asking you to wear a jersey or the colors. Wear something else. Wear a plain black T-shirt. I don't give a damn if you're a Packers fan and you're coming to a Bears Cardinals game. Like, nobody cares. You don't look cool because you've got a Packers jersey on. Like, oh, let me make sure everybody knows I'm a Packers fan. I hate it. And not just football. And like basketball, I hate it.
I'm beginning to think that this was all a plant so that Dani could just get this off her
Get
chest.
On my soapbox. Okay, here's another question.
You know what really grinds Dani's gears?
Here's another question.
Here comes another rant.
Yeah, here's
3,
another
2, 1.
one. How do you feel about the wave? I've learned that people feel very strongly about it. Yeah. Cody in the back has given 2 thumbs down. I'm impartial to the wave. I don't really care.
Yeah. Now you may have struck a nerve. Save the wave for your own living room. Okay? If you're at a game, you're supposed to be engaged in the game. So,
what do you argue that is being engaged?
No, absolutely not, because all you're doing is waiting for the fan wave to come around and take your turn so you can get up and down. What does that do for anyone or anything involved with the game? If anything, you're distracting your own players.
So Paul is anti-wave. How do you feel about...
I've been at World Series games. I've been at World Series games.
That's my next question.
And the wave breaks out in a key moment. Bottom of the 7th of a tie game. It's 2 outs, 2 on, and the wave breaks out? I mean, why don't you just tell America that you are clueless as a fan base?
Here we go. That's my segue. How do you feel as an adult going to a professional baseball game without any kids and you bring a glove?
You bring a glove. Well...
See, I don't have... I'm going to take this. Yeah. I don't want to see an adult like trampling a kid to get a ball, but I don't see what the big deal about it is if you take a glove.
It's weird to me. You're not going to catch a home run or a fly
You don't
ball.
know that.
Well, you can catch it with your bare hands.
It's
well, thank you very much for just throwing my hands out there to the world. I'm standing out there, 400-foot home run.
Have you not seen?
How do you know I'm not going to get all bloody?
Have you not seen all the videos of like the dad's got a baby in one hand or a beer and catches it one hand with the other?
I'm just going to state for the record, beer, whatever. I can't imagine the mother of that child every time that happens going, what in the bleep me here? No, what in the hell are you doing?
I agree.
All I know is blazed in my brain is a highlight of some dad in center field catching a screaming home run, line drive, with the infant in one arm and catching it barehanded in the other. And I'd say all time in baseball history, that's right behind the Willie Mays center field catch over the shoulder. That's the degree of difficulty of making that catch.
Better than the Kevin Mitchell one-handed?
Well, sure, because if Kevin Mitchell is running to make a one-handed grab with a 6-month-old in his arms, then maybe.
That's a good point.
My goodness.
I don't have a problem with the glove thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about like if I went to a baseball game with someone and he brought a glove, I would be embarrassed to walk around.
Upon further review.
Is that ick for you, Dani?
Yeah, it might be.
I mean, if you're on a date with a guy and he brings the glove, I mean, doesn't that scream, I'm soft? I mean, come on, right?
I agree.
It does.
Okay,
here's
no,
another...
No, let me finish before we get off that topic. A quick story. Myself, Chris Melvin, Mark Dalton, Mike Helm went to a Padres, I think it was Padres Brewers game.
Darren in the media relations department.
When there were still games in San Diego, so maybe 2016.
Another freebie.
We got some decent seats, and there was nobody there. Okay. And we're down the first base line, and it's like there's the 4 of us, and there's nobody really around us, and then there's like this group of like 3 or 4 gentlemen that were like, I don't know, 3 rows in front of us, and we're sitting there, and Helm is to my left, and somebody in the batter's box fouls it off on a line drive, but I'm like, I've got this. I mean, it is coming right at me. I feel completely confident that I am going to catch this.
Ruh-roh.
And right as the ball comes, Mike Helm sticks his right hand out in front of me. I mean, he was in my personal space, hits off his hand, bounces up to the dudes in front of us. I was like, The next time we went to a baseball game,
Party foul.
a couple of years later, I text my son and I said, "Hey, I'm here with Helm and these guys. We're at this baseball game." And my son texts back. He goes, "Don't let Wiz get anywhere near one of your foul balls."
Well, Darren, you violated the most basic rule of being an NFL receiver. Come back to the ball. You let the defender get their arm in for a PBU.
And having a glove would have made no difference. His hand still would have been in front.
He would have been
right?
pissing me off. Yeah.
The last question I have of this, and I don't feel some type of way about it, but I have learned over the years talking to friends, some, more so men, feel really strongly about not wearing a jersey with another man's name on the back of it.
I would not do it. No, I would not. I would never do it.
You
I
would never wear a jersey of a player.
But I don't necessarily, fans spend a lot of money for their jerseys, so I can see how they want to rock the jersey as any excuse,
Why you would never do it just because that's just you?
Does it have to do with
you just don't wear someone else's last name.
Maybe Wolf has rubbed off on me. Wolf will never wear a jersy of anyone, anytime.
Yeah, but he's
as a player,
so
I could see that.
Yeah, I just
he was actually a professional athlete.
Right. That's right.
You're close, Paul.
Well, let me.
Thanks for distinguishing that I was not, Darren.
Have you changed over the years, or would 25-year-old Paul Calvisi say the same thing?
No, I think that ended with high school. Like once you get past high school, thou shalt not wear a jersey anymore.
Paul's always been that kind of overly mature, I'm well past my age kind of guy.
Stop.
If we're talking about professional athletes, got to talk about Raygun. The Australian breakdancer who made headlines during the Olympics in Paris.
Raygun update desk. We have breaking news here of some sort?
It was quite the roller coaster of emotions because it came out that Raygun was retiring from breakdancing, which made me sad. And then she did an interview, and Darren made sure that I saw this, thankfully, that she's not actually retiring from breakdancing. She's just not going to participate in the Olympics in that sport anymore, which I guess makes sense because apparently that was a 1-year deal. Having breakdancing as an Olympic sport.
Or maybe there's a rule when you finish dead last, you're not invited back.
So she's still going to be breakdancing, don't worry. But the cherry on top of all this was who was the Minnesota Viking that did a touchdown celebration, and it was a spitting image. It was perfectly executed dancing like Raygun did.
I'll have to look that up later. I missed that.
How much time are you spending learning Raygun's dance to celebrate when you score a touchdown?
Well, you realize Raygun is still on our top 5.
I'm going to find it and send it to you.
Our Poly Power Poll of, ranking recent incompetence and ineptitude. We've shared this before.
Oh, yeah, we have.
I have about a dozen entries, so I'll just give you the top 5 right now. And this is in real time. This can change at any moment. It really, I brought this up when the box score for the Cardinals at Niners game listed the game time temperature as 89 degrees.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, you couldn't falsify that number more if you tried, and I'm guessing they did. So the box score they listed when it was about 112, they listed 89. So whoever did that in Santa Clara is on the list. The guy who was responsible for endless shrimp at Red Lobster and bankrupted the entire entity, he was fired, by the way. The Chicago White Sox for 120-something losses. And then Tyreek Stevenson has been a recent ad for the epic Hail Mary fail. And then Raygun still holds in strong in the top 5, just for recent incompetence or ineptitude over the past year or so. So that's in there.
The celebration player was Cam Bynum, and I'll be honest, I don't even know who that is.
Cam Bynum. So, yeah.
So good news. Raygun is still dancing her little heart out.
She said she'll never stop. She did.
Okay.
Thank goodness for that.
I'm going to leave you guys with some meaningful advice, something with some actual substance here as we
like whale goo.
Call it only one of us apparently is locked in during the bye week. It's yours truly, and I think this edition of Cardinals Underground has illustrated as much.
My edge has gone to hell.
Top 3 regrets people have on their deathbeds, according to a hospice nurse.
Really? Is she writing these down as they expire?
She has exploded on TikTok with
again with the explosion.
With her advice on how to live as a hospice nurse.
Okay.
The 3 regrets she hears most often. Number 1, people wish they'd appreciated their health when they had it.
Fair.
Number 2, people wish they hadn't worked their life away.
Okay.
And 3, people regret the most how they navigated certain relationships in their life, family, friends, and otherwise.
So none of those include having your favorite sports team win a title.
or wearing a jersey to a game, or participating in the wave, or being anywhere near a whale that's about to be exploded with 20 cases of TNT.
I feel very good about 1.5 of those.
Okay.
How about you, Paul?
As you go to work throughout the entire bye weekend.
What about
Darren
3? What about the 3? Where do you feel like you're ranking on those?
Luckily we're out of time. As Darren turns into my therapist, apparently here, just in time.
You brought it up, Paul.
It's just looking.
We have all the time in the world.
What was the old A.J. Hinch quote? Speaking of baseball, sweep your own front porch, Darren Urban, and that'll do it here on Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.